new album from Nas, a legend in hip-hop, a legendary rapper who had such a massive impact early on in his career at such a young age. You don't see this type of impact very often in hip-hop. You do not see such a legendary album come from such a young person, and it's pretty clear to see why, because he was so bloody young that it's hard to find such a talent at that kind of age that puts out one of the most celebrated hip-hop albums ever. And for good reason. I think that album is pretty damn great. Some fantastic hip-hop songs on there, some of the best ever in my opinion. And it's pretty difficult though to point at many of his other albums, in my opinion, and say, you know what, that's as good as Illmatic, because I just have always struggled a little bit to get to grips with some of his albums. And you know, some of his other albums are actually celebrated, and some people think his other albums are better than Illmatic and that kind of stuff, but I just don't really see it. And especially nowadays, you know, he's much older. He dropped Nasir a few years back, which was pretty meh. I don't think it's controversial to say that he's not at the top of his game, and hasn't been for quite some time, to be honest. So King's Disease was barely on my radar. I was barely excited to check this out. But you know what? Listening to it, I think it's actually pretty good, and there's quite an improvement since his last one. I'm not totally blown away by this, and I see some people saying, you know, it's a great, fantastic album. I personally don't see it as being that good, but I do enjoy this, which is quite surprising considering I just wasn't really expecting a great deal coming out of this. He's hit that point now where he's hitting us with some old wise man raps, where he's sort of like offering a bit of advice, offering his perspective on the way things are going right now. And it's working pretty well, honestly. I like the approach that he takes with his lyrics and his attitude on this album. The opening track was quite a surprising track, because it seems as though to me that he's pointing at someone in particular, or maybe a bunch of different artists or rappers or anyone, and just saying that they have wasted their potential. They're wasting their time, they're opening their mouth too much, saying a lot of shit. It honestly made me think that, is he talking about Kanye? Because we know what Kanye can be like, but then I wasn't entirely sure, and I don't know for certain. I don't even know if it's been confirmed anywhere else, but you know, it just did make me think. But even still, he's definitely not impressed with whoever he's talking about here. It was an interesting way to kick off the album, but we do go into Blue Benz, which seems to go into a bit more of like the luxury rap type stuff. He's not really giving me that great amount of content on this one. I'm not all that invested in what he's rapping about here, which happens a few times on this album, I must admit. There's some of his verses just don't really impress me all that much. He takes a dig at the IRS, you know, his money going to people that he doesn't know and doesn't know where it's going and what it's being used for. Pretty typical type stuff. You do get this occasionally in hip-hop songs. Just not really that blown away by this one, really. Charlie Wilson brings in a great contribution on his track though. His voice is just great. Anytime I hear his voice, I'm just so happy. What a great singer he is. Just feels so at home whenever I hear that man's voice. I don't know what it is, but he just gives you that really nice feeling. And to be fair, there's some good contributions throughout this album. There's some good guest features. Don Toliver on his track, thought he sounded really good. He adds a lot of flavour to the hook, which I feel like was missing a little bit on some of these tracks. There aren't exactly fantastic choruses or anything like that, but when you do get a good guest feature like Don Toliver, and usually I kind of find his voice a little bit annoying, especially on that most recent album he dropped, but here I think he actually adds a nice dynamic to a track like this. The Anderson .Paak feature is probably my favourite entire feature on the whole thing though. His vocals are just classic at this point. Like, you just know exactly what you're going to get with Anderson .Paak, and he just delivers. You know, that chorus is so good, it's so damn catchy. It was nice to see this kind of collaboration too, you know, two artists here coming together, and I kind of like that about this album. There are just some random features scattered around that make you kind of go, yeah, you know what, that's pretty cool. On the opposite end though, you do get Full Circle, which isn't exactly all that impressive. The guest verses are so. Like, they're just so. Like, there's nothing coming out of these rappers that entices me whatsoever, honestly. And the beat on this one is just barely impressive. I'm just not that hooked onto this, to be honest. Like, there are tracks like this throughout where they just have these kind of beats that just don't really do a lot. Whereas the final track has A$AP Ferg on the track. I think he sounded pretty good too, but like the beat here, though, the what I want to focus on, the beat here is just so much more engaging. Like, the samples that are laced in sound great. Like, there are some like expansive moments that just have these like luxurious sounding beats that work so much better for Nas. But then you do have like Full Circle, which just does barely anything. Ultra Black, though, has one of the catchiest beats. I like the bouncing beat here. I like Nas on this track too. He just sounds like he's celebrating, you know, being black and just essentially making every lyric about that, just sort of being unapologetic about it, just to try and say, look, this is what I am. If you're racist, go away. And more importantly, he sounds like he's having a good time on this one. Like, I like the way he's flowing over this beat. He just sounds like he's having so much fun, which I think is quite rare across this album from Nas, because a lot of the time he has this very like serious delivery. He's rapping about serious things and there's no time for fun because everything's too serious. But on this track, he just kind of lets loose and I really like it. A track like Till the War Is Won, though, can't really be rapped in that kind of way because obviously it's about a very serious topic. He's obviously talking about, you know, the struggles that particularly black people are having currently in America. And he shows a lot of appreciation to women on this track, particularly a lot of lines. He's just really, you know, pointing to women and saying that they're like the backbone and things like that. It's a well-written track and definitely serves a well-intentioned purpose. 10 Points is another wise man raps type song, offering a lot of advice to people and saying how they should be to maintain their success. References LeBron James and Michael Jordan throughout here. There's a lot of repetition of King, the King thing that he keeps doing, like every line ends in King. Gets a bit redundant, I must admit, but I at least appreciate the lyrics here because it is, again, another well-written track. And to be fair, generally that is what you're getting across this album. Occasionally some of the beats pop better than others. You know, some of the lyrics every now and then aren't as engaging as some of the best written tracks that I've mentioned, like Till the War Is Won. But generally, I think it's pretty solid. I was enjoying my time with this album. It wasn't something that was blowing me away. But to be fair, I wasn't exactly expecting that from Nas in 2020 anyway. So I'm quite happy with what he's delivered here. I think a 6 out of 10 is fair from me. I do think it's a slight return to form. Perhaps not on the same scale as some of the core fan base is thinking right now, because I know this is getting a lot of praise, but I think overall it's good for what it is. I'm interested to see what you guys think though in the comments. What do you think of this new album here from Nas? Do you think it's great? Do you think it's not that good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's bad? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it and hopefully you have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already, and goodbye.